Kinship for our families is a continuance of connection despite challenges that a family could face.
With the law changes for the continuum of care reform, it opened up in resource family approval, or for families coming through to become resource families, formerly known as foster families, this greater access. So before, our kinship families maybe had a separate way of becoming assessed for placement and for approval for the resource family process. The designation was different, the level of support was different, the funding streams were different. And so with the continuum of care reform, with a lot of the law changes, it's opened up this access for kinship caregivers, families who have that connection to a child before they enter into the child welfare system, the ability to have the same level of support and services really accessible to them. Sometimes there's a biological connection to a family, whether you're auntie or uncle or sister or grandma, grandpa, so there's that connection where you're connected through blood. I think oftentimes there's been a lot of change over the last several years where this definition of kinship felt really restrictive, like it had to be one way and you had to be related and had to be 6 degrees, and that's not the case anymore. So a lot of time when people are kin, they don't even realize that they are kin and that there are services and supports available.
Kin caregivers do not need to be biologically related to that child. Kin caregivers are community members that are connected to that family. So it could be a godmom, it could be an aunt, grandmother, lots of grandmothers and grandfathers that we work with raising their grandchildren.
Or you've been best friends with mom since she was 5, right? And so you're like a sister. That also counts as kinship. Or you're coach on a football team, or you go to the same church every weekend, and so you have those relationships.
Really close family friends can be considered what is a nephrom, is what they call it by legal terms.
It can also be voluntary. It could be like maybe there is a legal court order. You've gone to the courts, you've gotten legal guardianship, and so there's a legal document and a parent has voluntarily provided legal rights to you so that you can enroll them in school without a lot of the barriers and forms that you need to fill out and make it a little bit easier.
Providing kin connection to children, and speaking from a lived experience perspective, what we know is that when kids are completely severed from their family, that takes a toll on them mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, like all of the dimensions, it takes a toll on them. And if we're talking about kids that thrive, in my particular situation, an adolescent, so we're looking at someone who is about to be an adult, who is trying to figure out who they are in this world. I think that when we're taking that next step into adulthood, really knowing your people is important.
Really keeping kids with family or with non-related extended family members, with people they know before they got involved with child welfare, and minimizing the trauma that they might experience, allowing them to have connection, to feel confident, to know that the person that's caring for them is somebody who knows when they get upset, they roll their eyes, right? Or they slam the door, and those are totally normal experiences that we've all had.
We have experienced kinship families that have come through the doors of that child receiving different services at our organization and not even realizing that they're providing kinship care until they have a conversation with someone here, right? Because I'm just taking care of my family. Stanford Sierra Youth and Families can support a family in transitioning from informal to formal by having them be connected to a kinship navigator. A kinship navigator is someone who has walked the lines of that process of maybe starting off informally and then transitioning to formal. It could have been that I'm just taking in my grandchild because my child is suffering with an addiction, or maybe is incarcerated for a period of time, but then that period goes longer and there needs to be additional supports. We have support groups that specifically bring other families together that are also experiencing that. I mean, there's nothing more healing than community, and for folks who get it, we've all had experiences and you don't have to further explain yourself. We have trauma-informed social workers, we have family advocates, we have trainings that are available to our kinship caregivers.
Our Kinship Navigator program can help support with both formal and informal, right? Those terms that we're talking about where you have child welfare involvement or you don't, but there are needs that are coming up and you're needing support. And then we also have our Pathways to Permanency program or our foster care and adoption program, which can support with that resource family approval process, help families navigate when there is child welfare involvement.
Kinship is when we get to keep kids connected to their roots, to their community, to their family forever, and support that family through navigating those challenges. We all have family struggles and challenges, and so how great and amazing is it that kinship is an opportunity not for families to be separated, but to stay together. What we do know from various different trainings that we've taken over the years and studies done is that the health disparities dramatically decrease for a child who gets to stay connected to their family. Permanency is important, right? Like whether you are with a family you don't know and you've fallen in love with and it's become family, chosen family, or if you're connected to your family. Family is important. But what we know is that when we're looking at outcomes for children who get to stay in their community and get to stay with a connection of their family, those children thrive and have less questions about where they came from and who they are, because those that kinship family knows. They know those struggles. They know where their family overcame or didn't overcome.
You're not alone. I think the beautiful thing about caregiving in general, right, is that what we do matters and what you do matters. There's still the same level of training that we want families to go to and have access to. There's still an assessment that happens with a social worker. There's still lots of paperwork. This is a paperwork-heavy process, so you'll have lots of meetings with team members, lots of paperwork that you're submitting and filling out.
Realistically, it's hard because family can be challenging. But it's worth it. It's worth it.